Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. We are rapidly approaching the third race in the triple header, and while Red Bull certainly will come in as favourites, Mercedes have revealed they are surprisingly confident in performing well once again this weekend, saying their car will certainly be performing better than it did back in Spa. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. Let's talk Ferrari, confirmation of their new livery for this weekend, plus new outfits, not really outfits, race suits, whatever, that Leclerc is not seemingly too happy to be wearing here, but this is what it looks like. Now, this is what the car looks like. So I thought they were going to go all out. I feel like if you're going to go for this yellow vibe, you've got to kind of commit to it. They've gone red with a bit of yellow, of course the medium tyres on as well, but I do love this rear wing, in fairness. The Ferrari on the rear wing is lovely, but yeah, the yellow at the back of the car, the yellow lines across it, the yellow number 16, I don't know if I'm a massive fan, to be perfectly honest, but this is the kind of special livery that Ferrari will be employing this weekend. Like, I mean, look, yeah, that rear wing is lovely. The problem to some extent here is though that they won't be using much of a rear wing. It's not like you're going to be able to see the Ferrari rather clearly because they're going to use as small a rear wing as they possibly can get. So while it might look good on paper, the reality is that yeah, I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of this new livery, but still, like, they're giving it a go. They're hoping that their car survives to the end of the race, because we have seen that Ferrari know their deficit in a straight line is pretty important. At least to the Red Bull, they know they need to do what it takes to try and catch it up, i.e. a smaller rear wing as they can possibly manage, and also apparently they're going to turn up their engine to the max to try and make sure they can actually win this weekend, right? But that might mean that they take on a higher chance of the engine exploding, which of course would be a bit of a disaster in front of the Tifosi. And yeah, people were roasting it a fair bit, kind of saying that that new livery kind of looks like the Ronald McDonald livery, kind of echoing the sentiment of the Ferrari pit wall by going full clown mode. So we'll see if once again it happens this weekend in Monza. It is the high race. You would think that Ferrari can finally, if they're going to muster up the ability one weekend to not make any errors, it would be Monza, but more than likely that actually turns out to be the other way around. In fairness though, the last few Grand Prix at Monza have been rather interesting. Leclerc in 2019, that was iconic and remarkable. Then Gasly in 2020, and then Riccardo in 2021, right? So the last few races have been pretty incredible. Will it go back to kind of standard proceedings? Because Max Verstappen's history at Monza is not good. I don't even know if Max Verstappen has had a podium at Monza. He's had a couple of DNFs, a couple of difficult performances, difficult races. This year he obviously goes in as the stone cold favourite, so maybe something remarkable is going to happen again, as it has done most recently in Monza over the last few years. Let's talk Mercedes potential, right? Because right now in race pace over the last 3 races since Hungary, then into Spa and Zandvoort, they've pretty much been the second best team. Yes, Red Bull was miles away in Spa, of course, but Mercedes were pretty much there with them, at least in terms of the higher tyre pace and maybe the medium tyre pace. At Zandvoort, I think that on the soft tyre, the Red Bull was certainly still clear of them, but still, it's probably the best race, including the whole qualifying period that Mercedes had all season in Zandvoort, and Hungary was honestly relatively similar. Spa, like, nowhere near the pace, and coming up to Monza with the straight line speed deficit, not as powerful an engine, it seems like it's going to be a difficult weekend. But in fairness, Ferrari, everywhere they go lately, they seem to be slower in race pace than the Mercedes, and maybe that will be critical this weekend, because the way it's been looking lately is that Mercedes can handle the Ferraris in the race, and then it really comes down to whether they can beat Max Verstappen, right? And that maybe both Red Bulls, if the straight line speed really does play into their advantage. But that is kind of the key hurdle really for Mercedes to deal with, and they know their car's getting better. They have brought upgrades. They do still intend to do that as the races progress, but look, they have said that some races will be good for us, some races won't be so good for us. The focus to fight for wins is probably on circuits that are a little bit more like Zandvoort or might suit them better. Monza isn't one of those circuits, so I would have presumed that their kind of confidence would be rather low going into this weekend, saying, you know what, we got our chance here at Zandvoort. It didn't quite work out. We gave it a go. Didn't quite happen. Like at Monza's not going to happen. But they're actually surprisingly confident that this weekend's can actually go better than maybe they might expect to, or at least some might expect them to, especially because you'd expect the Red Bulls to walk all over everyone. Maybe Mercedes are just eyeing a podium, a double podium or whatever, but they believe that their car's going to work much better here than it did back in Spa. And even how it was performing back in Spa in race pace, George Russell was still pretty much quicker than both Ferraris on the balance of the entire race. Rosberg still reckons that Mercedes can win this season. Like, of course, it's still possible. They were very close back in Zandvoort, and the opportunities might be arising. So they do the kind of like a Condis thing where they break down the most recent race. There were some interesting statements here from Andy Chauvelin in the decisions that they made, but discussing how at Spa, their car really suffered with the bounces of the circuit, and they were having a difficult time running it as in the optimal window, let's say. In Zandvoort, they arrived, and the car, now with further upgrades over, well, since the summer break, really, they've brought further things to that Mercedes. strategies, it was working much better. And they believe in Monza, it's actually going to be significantly better than it was at Spa. Yes, the track features with the straight lines don't necessarily suit them quite as well, let's say, as Zandvoort did, but they still are relatively confident that, yes, their car might be performing worse than it did at Zandvoort compared to the Red Bulls, but it should be significantly better than Spa.
Fundamentally, the aerodynamics of the car will be very similar. We can run smaller wings, but if we run smaller wings, we've got a bit less downforce. And we're optimistic that some of the specific problems we had in Spa over the bumps shouldn't affect us. So we think we can get the car in a better working window. However, the Red Bull does look very efficient. It's fast on the straights and it's quick in the corners. And those problems seem bigger for us when we go to the low downforce track. So it's difficult to say exactly where we'll be, but probably not as strong as we were in Zandvoort, but hopefully nowhere near as difficult as it was in Spa. We've just been developing the car, trying to solve a few of those problems that we had early in the season, and as time has gone on, we've been getting quicker and quicker. However, you'll have seen in Spa, we definitely struggled, particularly on a single lap, and we've identified some areas in terms of where we have taken the car to in its development that make it difficult to run it in its optimum condition at those tracks. So in Spa, we had to lift the car a bit. We were struggling with it on some of the bumps, and the net effect was that was costing us performance. We then decided to run a bigger wing than we would have ideally done to try and put the downforce back on the car, and the net result is we were okay in the corners, but we were slow on the straights. And that was costing.
So of course Mercedes, look, they've got all the data, they've got all the analysis, they can look at last year's kind of track conditions, right, that it was in Monza, and try and plug in what their car might do around these circuits and have some idea as to, like, okay, look, it's a simulation and we know the W13 doesn't always like to be aligned particularly well with simulations. They may believe that the car's going to be better this season, the reality could be starkly different. Now, like, I don't think they're denying that Red Bull are the massive favourites. Their car is so quick in a straight line, the tempo of speed is not going to suit anyone else other than Red Bull. But of course, back at Spa, the Mercedes was so uncompetitive in qualifying. I mean, what, 1.8 seconds off the pace of Max Verstappen, and Verstappen literally just did one lap and went back into the garage, like having known the job was done at that point. They believe they should be closer in terms of qualifying and race pace maybe to the Red Bulls than they were back at Spa. So I imagine Chauvelin saying, like, well, look, we're not going to be favourites here, but the question is, can they beat Perez and can they beat the Ferraris? Because I think that is kind of their key to getting a win this season. Verstappen's probably going to be the favourite every race he goes to, but you'd imagine at some point Verstappen runs into some sort of hiccup or issue that prevents him from winning a race, or if maybe a safety car comes out at a different timing, then it could be a different story, right? So I think Mercedes' intention is be faster than the Ferraris and be faster than Perez, and if that's the case, then they're in with the shout right at every single weekend. Now, maybe it's going to be another Spa story at Monza, where both Red Bulls are just so rapid in a straight line that it doesn't matter if Perez is driving well or badly, he's just going to, just destroy them in a straight line, which is possible. We also know that Ferrari are planning to potentially up their engine mode and also run a new rear wing, so they also should have some advantage, but Mercedes still believe that there's something on the cards here rather than just a 5th, 6th or something along those lines. They think that maybe this track's going to be better. If they went here at the start of the season with their like Bahrain edition car, they'd be bumping all over the place, bouncing around, Paul was saying, so at least they don't have those issues anymore, but the pure straight line speed hasn't quite been there for them lately, but of course they're going to do everything they can with some new rear wings that they've brought to the last few circuits to make that happen. He actually went on to explain that back in Spa, they tried to run a lower downforce rear wing mode, but because they had to run the car higher because of the bumps in Eau Rouge and stuff, they weren't really able to get away with it, therefore they had to sacrifice an awful lot of straight line speeds to arrive at any sort of compromise. Maybe the same story won't be here in Monza, that's certainly what they believe, and if that is the case, then maybe we do get a Verstappen-Hamilton battle. Maybe not this track, as you'd imagine the Red Bull will still be much faster, but maybe as time progresses we can actually get back to that rivalry to some degree that we had last season. Would be good to see some more on-track battles between the two of them, and even last weekend, right, there was plenty of discussion that Mercedes could have won. Andrew Chauvelin did mention there, he didn't really discuss the possibility of George backing up Max to make sure that when they went through the pit lane, because given the fact that Bottas, where he like DNF'd on track, Mercedes could have theorized that the safety car would have come through the pit lane. Therefore, if they'd have asked Russell to kind of back off Verstappen a little bit, then they might have had time for the double stack, leaving Hamilton in front on the soft tyres. Even if that was the case in fairness, Verstappen and the Red Bull on the softs were quicker than the Mercedes was on the softs, but would he have quite had the delta of lap time advantage to overtake Hamilton? That's a question that we shall never know, but still, Mercedes might have had the strategy within their opportunity to make that happen. That could have been the silver bullet for them, and they were obviously rather close to getting the win at Zandvoort. Monza, we imagine, is going to be a different story, but I think many were expecting Mercedes to be rather pessimistic. I mean, Ferrari have indicated their pessimism, right? I think Charles Leclerc has actually said specifically that he's not particularly confident about their performance. Now, maybe the drivers, Russell and Hamilton will say, probably it's not going to happen here at Monza, but the team and the engineers seems to believe there's something about their car and with the new upgrade that they've brought that suits Monza better than Spa, and if that's the case, and if their advantage over Ferrari retains itself, then maybe once again it's Verstappen versus the two Mercedes guys for the victory in the race, but I feel like there's no world in which Mercedes are going to overtake that Red Bull on track, because it's just so hard to do with the straight line speed that they have, especially around a circuit, of course, like Monza. And at this, just to mention quickly on Ferrari, because supposedly that technical directive that came through has affected them, not necessarily directly, but more indirectly, because with the new floor they had to put on for the anti-flexi floor thing, they now apparently have a smaller operating window. The Ferrari used to be able to turn up to any track and just be a good car. Nowadays, it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore, and the tyre degradation has been big, so even if the Ferrari are better than Mercedes around Monza, there is concerns about tyre deg and stuff that maybe the strategy won't fall in their favour. Max, of course, still there being the big favourite, and a couple of interesting stats to close out the video here with. This I thought was rather interesting, the fact that Russell this season on 188 points actually has more than Bottas had this time last year, which is, like significantly more as well, which is kind of not exactly surprising maybe on the way the season has gone, but is interesting to look at nonetheless. And just this as well, I thought this was incredible. Since Bahrain, where both Red Bulls DNF'd, they have had at least one driver in the top two. They have won the vast majority of races. They've come second in only 3 races out of all of the last, this is honestly such a ridiculous run of form that as long as both cars finish, at least one of them is on the podium. So I believe they're now at, a 14 podium streak, which I think is now the second longest in Red Bull's history. They had, I believe, a 19 podium streak a couple of years ago. So several years ago now. So maybe they can get back to that form, because it certainly seems to be on based on the way these guys, especially Verstappen, are currently driving. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.